Hello group, this is your administrator Piyush Mathur. I made a post to the group on December 6, 2022 advising people looking for a job on the group's wall to specify what job they're looking for, what alternative jobs might be acceptable to them, what their education level is, what their skills are, what their experience has been so far professionally, and what future aspirations they have in connection with the job that they are seeking. Because without these details, nobody would even be able to help you out, say via information, if not a job itself, and leave aside whether you would be attractive at all. So you would be failing very basically if you don't provide these details and just ask for a job. And you would be failing in being attractive as a job candidate if you don't provide those other details, including aspirations regarding your future. So today I would talk about another category of people, which is kind of similar to this category I just mentioned. The group receives a lot of posts just like this. I'm a student. I need money to pursue my education further. Or I'm a student who has had to get out of the school for lack of funds. So these posts claim to be from actual students, and they might very well be. I tend to trust people. At the same time, I wouldn't advise anybody to trust anybody blindly. So, what that means is that if you're making such a post, the first thing that you must do is to attach a photo of your identification at a school or at any institution where you might be. Well, if you say that you have been kicked out of the school because you couldn't pay the fee, then you still must attach a photo of the identification that you had when you were in that institution. That's the very basic thing. But there's a lot else coming that I will tell you in the next few minutes. So you have attached this photo of your identification, whether it is current or whether it is, 6 months old is another matter. But in the post itself, you give these details: what grade, standard, or class you are in at that institution. Okay? Because that would tell us what type of a student you are, whether you're a school student or a college student or a university student or a pursuer of some professional diploma. And if you're a school student, you must mention whether you're a high school student or a middle school student. If you are a college student, then you must mention your discipline. Okay? If you're a pursuer of a diploma, then you must mention what sort of diploma it is that you are pursuing. Because a student is expected to be not only sincere but also meticulous, detail oriented. Okay? So if you provide just your identification, that tells the reader that you are basically sincere. Okay? That you're not a scammer. But when you give these other details, then another message goes across to the reader or the viewer that this person is detail oriented and can be trusted as a student with potential. Okay, so now the question is, you have asked for money, okay, and you have shown that you are actually a student or aspiring student. You have even mentioned details regarding your discipline, you know, and other details like locality and so forth. But the reader also wants to see whether you have made any efforts so far to get funding from somewhere else. That's very important, because students have lots of sources of funding, but they don't always know about them. And at the same time, students who do not even know about such sources of funding are not considered to be particularly ambitious. And if they are not ambitious enough, then ironically, it's difficult for a stranger to give them any kind of help. Okay? So, what I'm trying to say is that in addition to all these things that I've mentioned before that you must provide in your post, you must also give indications of what you have tried to do on your own to get funding for yourself before asking for the same on this group. Okay? So, what that means is that even as you're writing a post like this, and assuming that you have come across this video, then you must go to the internet and start looking for funding for somebody with your kinds of specific details. Okay? By which is meant, okay, I'm a high school student in Kenya, for instance, and I'm looking for funding. You start your searches on the internet that way. You will find some resources, and even if you do not find resources, you would be able to claim that you did this type of a search, ask some other people, but you failed to come up with any relevant information. So what that means is that when you make the post, you cannot just ask for money. Okay? In fact, asking for money, while you could put it, first and foremost, it would actually be secondary. What is much more important for you to ask is information regarding sources of funding for me as a student at this level, in this locality. You know all the rest that I've already just said. So look for not just money, but information regarding sources of funding for you as a particular type of a student. Okay? The question then becomes, what sources are available to students? Well, that depends. That depends exactly on those details. Okay? And even if you have yourself failed to come up with those sort of sources, information regarding them, maybe somebody on this group would have the requisite information relevant to you that person can provide to you through the group, depending on whether you have provided these details in your post. Other than that, I could tell you that students can get scholarships, students can get grants, students can get awards or opportunities for all of these. There are bursaries available, there are many things available, but you may not always have the information. You may not be enterprising enough. Maybe you need assistance in preparing your application, okay, for those sources of funding. So you can ask for those sorts of assistance in addition to asking directly for money. And in fact, if you do the latter, then you would be more credible as a person asking for money. Okay? So put your efforts first, then report in your post about your efforts. Well, so now the question would arise, I'm only 13-year-old. Okay? I come from a poor family. I come from a locality that is extremely underdeveloped, economically deprived. How do you expect me to make these efforts? Well, all of that is true. But what is also true is that you have access to the internet. Howsoever limited it might be, you do have that access. You have been able to make a post to this group. You have been able to find this group among thousands others on Facebook. You have been able to log on to the internet, log on to the Facebook, and then come to this group. You have made a lot of efforts. If you have made those efforts, then of course you can make these efforts. Okay? So, do not live in your own excuses. Make your efforts. Okay? Try to convince the reader or the viewer of your post that you are actually trying, and this is the evidence, and you seek support beyond that. Okay? But there is another thing I would like to say. Although you are 13-year-old, you could actually make money online. Okay? Now, I understand that you may have parental restrictions, you may not have your own device, okay? You may be using your mother's or father's phone just to make this post. Well, you will have to convince your parent that you could actually make money, or you would like to make money using the phone on the internet. Now, I'm not saying that I have, immediate information available that could help you start making money tomorrow. Okay? That's not going to happen. However, what I can tell you is that there will be people on this group, and that might include me, who might be able to provide useful information whereby you could, as a 13-year-old, make legitimate money. Okay? You might say that, well, should I be expected as a 13-year-old to make money? My problem is that do not worry about what people expect from that end. Okay? You need to look at the reality that you face as an individual and make the best of your resources. Okay? So this group is fundamentally about that, and yet it is also about possibilities, rare as they might be, of direct financial assistance. Okay? And as I said before, if you provide those sort of details and give indications of how effortful you are, then maybe it would convince somebody to help you financially and directly. what goes for a 13-year-old, of course, goes for a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, or somebody even older. Because this group receives these sort of appeals from all age groups, really. Appeals where somebody claims that they are a student and they're looking for funds. And basically nothing beyond that. Okay? What I'm saying is that specify all these details and maybe you would gain some traction through this group, right? So get down to it. Start taking the right steps. Okay? I hope your next post is substantive. All right. Thank you.